Happy Wine Wednesday. Oh, shoot. Forgot my light. Hang on. That's a little better, right? Okay. Happy Wine Wednesday. I have my Seahorse cup, which again, guys, if you didn't know this, then most of the seahorses on like our design, on our logo, I'm wearing my member shirt tonight, on my glass, they're my actual seahorses that I used apps to trace and etc. And like our logo, these are literally my two seahorses, not wrapped around an SW, of course. I imposed that in, but they're real. They're real seahorses. So kind of a cool thing. Anyhow, happy Wine Wednesday. Holly reminded me right before the show that one of the things that we do want to talk about, let me turn chat on here. One of the things we do want to talk about tonight is enrichment, but I wanted to ask first, I know people expect me to be late, and I'm not that late tonight. So anybody joining, as always, it's open chat. So if you have any questions about your seahorse tank, a seahorse tank, or the water chemistry or any of that, even if we're like talking about the topic of enrichment, you can ask a question that's left field and we will answer it. That's what Wine Wednesday is all about, you know? So before we get into enrichment, anything new with you, Holly?
Yes, I got my handheld TDS meter finally. It was like $8 off of Amazon. So I tested my water because I've been saying, I said, I don't think the TDS meter in my RODI thing's working. And I've been thinking that for about a year now because it always reads 0. And I'm like,
Right?
what's going on? So I got this new TDS meter, and sure enough, it was wrong. I stuck it in one of my buckets, and it said the TDS was 83
Oh,
in the water I was using for the seahorses. And then the next bucket, it said it was 24. So I went to change out my resin because I had a pack here. I've got 2 resin chambers. And when I pulled one, I've got this resin that changes color, right?
mm-hmm.
Well, what was weird was half of it, the top half was brown, the top half was black, meaning it used up the top half and not the bottom, which was
Okay.
weird to me. But I
Yeah.
emptied it all out anyway because I didn't trust it.
Right.
So I put in the new resin, I switched it out. So the other canister went to the back and the new resin went to the front.
Yep.
So it's the last one to go through. And then I used my new TDS meter to read it because now all the resin is black, so it looks fine. But my TDS is still running between 25 and 30, like 27.
Because it's been expired for so long, it used up both cartridges, so you've only got half the system working now. You've got to replace the
Okay.
other one too.
So the other one you think's used too. And another thing, I need to replace my sediment filter. I can tell because it's turned brown. So I'm wondering if that has something to do with it too.
That's often it, is that we're looking at the DI always, but you don't look at the first two. When's the last time I changed that, you know?
Yeah, so I need to get a kit, I think, and change out everything because I've only been changing the resin.
Right.
And I stopped changing I think I changed the sediment filter once, actually. I've had this system, I want to say 2 years, maybe 3 years. And I haven't changed much because it was always telling me 0.
Right.
So,
Right.
Okay,
So
before you
hang
do anything
on,
more,
Ray,
order
Ray.
anything more,
Go ahead.
take the line off after the the membrane and run a sample through it and check that because you may have to replace that membrane.
So you're saying that unhook each side and do a sample so that you can see where the problem is? Is that
so it doesn't go through the other stages, just
Right.
the membrane.
Right.
I'll have to look because I'm not sure how to
If it's
do
not
that.
doing the proper job going through the membrane, the levels are
I
going to
need
be
that.
too high, and they're going to just quickly foul up the other one, and it's just going to keep on going through anyway.
Well, and it's surprising to me though too, because Holly, your water's so good anyways. It's only like
Well,
100
coming out
in.
of the tap, that I tested it now that I have the new meter. I tested what it is coming out of the tap, just fresh out of the sink, 40.
Yeah, see that's crazy.
So, but like I said, I was saying in our Wine Wednesday chat, so it hasn't worked for a long time. They've been living in that water forever, but they're doing fine. So what does the TDS do for them? I mean, what's the problem with having higher TDS?
Right?
Well, the dissolved solids and that, when you do get them into the aquarium there, they're going to lead to dissolved organics.
Okay, so I probably have high dissolved organics because of
Yeah.
the high TDS then.
So
Yeah.
Zen said she was just watching a stream about the resin they use for those. And if they are refilled by pouring it in all at once and not packed down, you can get massive TDS creep as the water finds channels.
I think
I
that was
always,
what was wrong with that one, and that's why it was only partly brown. Because I did have to in the beginning when I changed it, it kept like the water kept doing weird. I kept having to unscrew it and screw it back on because the water wasn't going where it needed to be or something.
Like not screwed up all the way, right?
I
I mean,
tried
it sits out
resin,
after a
replacing the
while,
resin
but
years ago, and I give up on it. And so now I just buy the complete cartridges. But
See,
I replaced that diaphragm about I'll replace everything, and then I'll replace the deionizing cartridges, and then one more time I'll replace the cartridges. So then on the third time I replace the diaphragm too.
so I would say this, that if you read the recommendations for all of these, because the RODI unit that I used to use when I had all the tanks all over the house and I had to make, like, I had literally 30-gallon brute trash cans that I made water in, right? Because I had so many tanks that I needed water for. So I was and my TDS out of the tap is like 400, not 40. So mine's crazy bad. And so, but I do know that it depends on how bad your water is and all that. But the recommendations is to change the DI, like every 3 months, maybe 6,
yeah,
but to
6
change the
months.
others
Yeah.
every 6. So if you've had this running for 2 years, of course, not your fault because it kept telling you it was 0. But I would just say, you got to change it before there's a problem so that you don't have the problem. And Zen said, often if you fill a quarter of the chamber at a time and pack the resin in a little at a time, apparently it helps avoid that. Maybe something to look at.
And I did that this time too because I wanted to make sure it was getting tight. So I banged it on the counter. I'd put a little in, then I'd bang it on the counter. Then I'd put a little more in, bang it on the counter. I did that about 4 times. And then at the end, when I filled the top and I had the sponge thing on top of it and I was putting the cap on, I had Scott come and make sure it was really packed because he's stronger than I am. I'm like, is this packed? Can you make sure?
So don't crack your machine by banging it. Okay, we're not advertising that.
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying. And to be honest with you guys, I'm not much help in this area because when I stopped having 10 tanks all around my house and now I have 2, I literally buy distilled water. It's just easier than, replacing, because it'd been so many years with my RODI system that I knew I'd have to replace the whole thing. And, it just ended up cheaper, easier, whatever, to buy gallons of distilled water.
I can't go a year without replacing the diaphragm.
Right. And why is that though? Why can't you go a year?
Well, the TDS goes up, and I just assume that it's not capable of handling like my tap water is 104. and with the amounts that I go through and so on. Well, I'm not going through it now. I'm just using it for my hydrator now. What do you call them? Where it puts the water in the air?
Air conditioner?
Oh, a
No.
humidifier.
Humidifier. Yeah.
And
But yeah, no,
anyway,
yeah.
it just, the TDS would get up too high, and I'd know when it's using up the cartridges. If I do a cartridge change and it uses up a way sooner than the one before, then I know I've got to change that diaphragm membrane.
My little guy keeps making me think my hair's sticking out. Okay. Anyways, no, and it's a complex topic, and the thing is, I'm not an expert in it because I kind of gave up on it myself and started just buying distilled. But I probably am spending more, right? It feels like less because
Probably depends on how much water you go through. I'm
right.
going through
So
a lot of water, so it takes 40 gallons for my water changes every week, and then between 5 and 10 gallons every day
yeah,
for so that's a lot.
yes, that would be
But it
ridiculous.
is expensive, all those membranes and things. I have a 7-stage. So
Yeah.
there's like 3 of the cylinder things at the top. I guess those are the membranes. And then there's sediment filter and 2 carbon block filters and then 2 resin filters. So that's a lot of stuff.
Especially, well, the part that confuses me for you, Holly, is that
Uh-huh.
if your tap water's 40
Mm-hmm.
and then it goes through all those, how is it ending up higher than your tap water?
Right?
Like
It's dumping out of that cartridge that hasn't been changed, for one thing, and the membrane isn't doing a thing. So it goes through the membrane and doesn't reduce it.
stuff.
Then it
Yeah.
goes through the cartridges and it dumps some back in.
Got you. So I mean, I like the idea.
So the resin expires then, even if it doesn't show it's changed.
Well, the color change resins I'm not a fan of anyway, but
especially Holly, if you've
it's
got
possibly because
half of it saying
I wasn't
good
doing
and
something
half of
right.
it saying bad. That's crazy.
Yeah, and then the other one looks like it's all good. It's all black still.
Yeah, so
So put it in the backup stage and put a new one in place.
That's what I did.
well, and
then
I would also
replace the carbon and replace the sediment and replace the membrane.
Yep, and I like Ray's idea. I remember having to do that with my RODI system. Mine wasn't a 7-stage, but I remember having to unhook and then run water to test it there to see where the problem was. I really like that advice because it's good because then you can figure out where you need to start replacing.
Yeah, I think it's got like valves where I can switch to test out the different things, I think, but I have to read the instructions. See, that's another thing is every time I do it, I have to find the videos, read the instructions because I don't do it often enough to remember.
Yeah.
Right. I haven't had it that long. I want to say I've had it like 2 years, I think. So the first few years of the Seahorses, they didn't even get RODI water. They were getting tap water with dechlorinator.
But you guys, anybody watching this, you have to remember.
But they're still here, most of them.
And your tap water's only 40 TDS.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got good water out the gate. Like, I think it's awesome.
Well, I'm lucky for that, I guess.
Yeah. But like, again, mine is 440 something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's insane.
If it's that good, 40 to start with, there's also the possibility that this meter you bought isn't reading right.
I was wondering that too. I'm like, do I need a third one to test this?
Well, find somebody that has one and then and uses it, and then check theirs and see if you get the same readings they're getting, or at least
maybe I'll ask because I don't know anybody in the hobby other than my local pet store. Maybe I'll bring a water sample to them of it and see if they can read it for me.
The other thing I always used to do is use which they do have I can't think of the word. They do have a tester. Like you can buy liquid that should be zero,
A
and then
liquid one.
but I would use distilled water. So if I test distilled water with my TDS and it says there's
Oh, yeah.
something on there, then I know
Good.
the
Yeah.
difference I need to calibrate, or you can't calibrate it, but you know what I'm saying? Like I would
Then
know.
I'll know how off it is. Like if I get a jug of distilled water and it says
Yes,
the distilled water's 20, then I know it's reading 20 parts per million high.
when it's zero, right? Yes, that's what I would do. Let me see. This
Because
light is blinding
distilled
me.
water is always zero, right? Is there ever a chance you get distilled water and it's not zero?
I mean,
Can it be bad?
say never. I know that some people confuse like purified water with distilled water. Not the same.
Yeah, they're not the
Drinking
same.
water is not the same as distilled. Or spring water is going to have minerals and all that stuff.
That could have a lot.
Distilled water should be zero. Always has been every time I've tested it. But yeah. And then I'm trying to read this, guys. This light is blinding me. Have you considered doing that RODI maintenance on a stream one night, and then you can just save it to a playlist so you can go back and watch what you did instead?
I'm not good enough to do that.
Or I have an even better idea.
I'd have to know.
Listen, Holly and I have decided that I'm going to come out and visit her every year. So it'd be really hard to like tape it and do it at the same time. But
Yeah.
maybe the next time I visit Holly, I could video record her
Could
doing
do
it, and we could put
Yeah.
it in the playlist. I love that
Because
idea.
I'll need to have a website up showing
I
me
know.
how to do it while I do it. So it's
Right,
hard
right.
to film that. I won't remember.
Yeah. We'll try, Zen. It's a good idea. Very good idea.
But it's different with each system you have. So
Yeah.
that's why I always have to go see. Mine comes from Bulk Reef Supply, and they've got videos and questions and answers and stuff. So I always go there when I'm getting ready to work on the RODI stuff, because like I said, I don't remember how to do it. And I have a book, but even the book, the way it explains it is sometimes confusing.
Well, no, I would absolutely
And
agree
I've
with you.
had the switch turned the wrong way. Sometimes I forget, I flush it before I start making my buckets of water. I'll flush it for a few minutes, and then, I turn off the water, switch it back, then make the bucket. Well, sometimes I forget to flip that switch. And thank goodness I figure it out every time. But the way I figure it out is because it's been running for half an hour and there's no water in the bucket.
Right. Well, and I really like you saying that though, Holly, because that's the same advice we have when you buy actual seahorses. Is the first person you should go to with questions or whatever is the seller. You go to the person that sold it to you because they have more knowledge about that particular system or those particular seahorses or whatnot, and can give you, also just as far as, if you decide the system is not working for you or the seahorses, anything terrible happens, any kind of refund exchange or whatever would depend on whether you had gone to the original source and, gotten the information that you needed. So I like that you check the BRS site for your information because that's where you got it. I didn't see any other questions about this. So I think at this point, Holly, you're going to test your different stages. You're going to replace some things and report back, right?
Yeah, it'll probably take a while because I have to make sure I have the money for all the stuff. It's expensive to do the whole thing. Like the kit without the membranes is like $70. And the membranes themselves are like $70 a piece. It's
when you
not
times
cheap.
that by
They're
5,
expensive.
7, that gets big. But if that's why figuring out which one is the major problem and you can replace that. And
yeah,
then
if I don't have to do the membranes yet, that would help.
Yeah. So get back with us on that. Because speaking of Holly saying man, I don't do it that often, so I don't really remember. She had a reminder in her phone to remind me that we needed to talk about enriching live foods. And I was like, hey, look up your notes because I haven't done it in so long. I don't remember the exact process. I would have to look it up or ask again or whatever, because when you don't do something all the time, it's like, I know you got to do this, that, and the other, but when is this and how is,
Yeah.
So I do want to make sure we fulfill our promise about talking about, hey, Sophie, enriching feeds. And I'm glad Sophie's here too, because when she does get fry, she's going to need to enrich for her fry. But you can enrich for just, everyday adult seahorses too. It's good for them too. But let's talk about real quick why enrichment is important. Ray, you want to run with it?
Sorry, why is it important?
Yes.
Well, all I can say is it's a big help to raising your fry. Without sufficient enrichment, the growth rate will be slow. They may not be as the immune system may not handle the stresses as well. So your yields at the end will be lower. Just what the old brain will think of just off the top.
Well, and what I remember is that, like, for instance, when we talk about fry, usually people use, they hatch Artemia to get that small feed that the seahorses, or dwarf seahorses or fry will eat. But the Artemia, while they're high in protein, they don't have the, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, is it
DHA.
Huffas? DHA. Okay.
DHA.
They don't have the DHA that the seahorses need. And so that's why enrichment is important when you're talking about Artemia, whether it be freshly hatched or adult. And then with live mysids, it depends on if they're saltwater or freshwater, right? Because saltwater might have everything that seahorses need. Whereas if you get freshwater mysis, they don't. So you have to enrich them. And you have to enrich them using Artemia, right? So big combobulation. But bottom line is, people want to know, how do I make a live feed better for my seahorses? How do I make sure it has everything that the seahorses need? And how do I make sure that that they're getting everything they need, that they need? So that's what I was asking, is basically it's just giving your seahorses more nutrition, vitamins, etc. But we don't really like soaking frozen foods in the enrichment, correct? Has anybody here done that?
Well, not
I
not
remember
after the
for
first
a
couple of
little while.
times.
Go ahead, Holly.
Remember for a little while, I know at least Cheryl and I were trying that that powder from Ocean Rider.
Mm-hmm.
They had a red powder for enrichment. There was two different ones, two different packs. And we tried it on the frozen food. I didn't use it long. I didn't like it. It was messy and I felt like it really wasn't soaking into the food.
Okay.
So I kind of thought it was pointless. I decided, and I didn't see a change in my seahorses with it. When I first started feeding it, they looked at the food like, "What the heck did you do to our food?"
Why
And
is it
then they're like,
right?
and then they're like, okay. So they started eating it, but since it was, an extra step in feeding them and it was messy and I couldn't see any results from it, I stopped doing it. I just felt like it was hard to get it to soak into the food,
Yeah.
probably enough to really make a difference.
Right.
So
So
I abandoned.
if on one hand we're telling people, are saying, don't leave frozen foods that you thawed out on the counter, because that's just growing bacteria. But in the next sentence, we're saying, let it sit there with
Keep it
enrichment.
to soak, right?
That doesn't really make sense. I agree with Holly's statement, because I did try it once, and the second that food hit the water, particles. going everywhere off the food. Like it
Yeah, it
didn't
was
really
messy.
soak in. It was just on the outer of the food. And so the second it hit the water, pashoo, it was all over the tank, adding to organics and not really enriching the seahorses, right? So when we talk about enriching, we're mainly talking about, well, we're absolutely actually talking about live feeds. But to enrich, what are the steps?
First of all, another remark to make about this, there
Yes,
are people that swear up and down it does soak in, and some people have done some testing for themselves that indicate to them that it does. It's still impossible for it all to soak in. So when you put it in that water, any amount that isn't soaked in is washing off into the water. All of a sudden, you have dissolved organics increasing.
yep.
Hmm.
So talk about the steps to enriching though, Ray. Just tell us, how you used to do it.
Enriching the live food.
Yes.
Oh, I guess to think in specific orders, that's a little difficult, but
You want
I
me to
would,
go to Holly? I can go to Holly.
yeah, I would be taking out a portion of, I would hatch out a lot. And because in my experience, they didn't grow enough in a week uh, that the fry wouldn't be able to handle that. So I would hatch out enough for a week. So I didn't have to do daily hatching and so on, but I would do daily enrichment. So I would take out the portion that I needed from what I had that it was just keeping on growing, and it was surviving by putting spirulina water into it. And so I
So
take
wait,
these
wait,
out.
wait, wait. Time out, time out. So you hatch a bunch of baby artemia, you collect them, you have them in a container, you're feeding them spirulina just, for a daily food, but then when you're ready to feed to the seahorses, you scoop out enough to feed to the seahorses and you do what?
That's when, well, I put them in, it's in fresh water at that point. I never ever, when I'm dealing with this, I don't like using tank water or anything like that because you're defeating the purpose and introducing the possibility of more bacteria. So
Correct.
I'll take them out of this container, and I know this container is building up some bacteria anyway because I'm letting them go for a week. But I don't worry about that until after the enrichment stage. So basically, I put them in some new salt water, and um, I add the enrichment and let it go, depending on the size of them. But normally with the young ones, it takes a long time. It's not like doing it with adults. It takes just to get gut loaded 12 hours.
Yes. Correct.
And so gut loaded is one thing, but by changing that water and putting new enrichment in and going a second 12-hour stage, now I not only have them gut loaded, I now have it assimilated into the flesh of the shrimp,
Yes.
which makes them much more valuable then.
So you're saying, so just to recap, you take out what you're going to feed the seahorses that day or the
Yeah,
next day. You put them in a new container of salt water. You add enrichment. You leave them 12 hours. You do a complete water change. You add new salt water, new enrichment, 12 hours, and then what?
well, at that point, that's when they're ready to feed. But because there's the possibility of bacteria that's in that water, and even if I didn't let them go for the 7 days. So say once they've been in there for a day to get through that instar one stage where they can't feed. Once they're into that instar two stage and can feed, they've been at least a day on average. Some will transition, say 15, 16, 18 hours. Some of them might even be more than a day before they transition, but on average, about a day.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm losing my track. Uh,
So
but
you,
basically, there is a good possibility of pathogens there that I'm going to try and minimize as much as possible before I use them as food. So at this point, uh, I put peroxide in, and where is it? I copied it onto the messenger on there. So
Okay.
Yeah,
maybe we
it's
could,
in our messenger, so you can
All
share
right,
it.
let me look it up. But
but
basically, you're saying,
we could maybe post that.
yeah.
For me, I just got used to doing it so often I never bothered measuring anymore.
All right, let me turn off this light.
You know, I've been doing this, well over a decade without measuring because I was doing it so often in my earlier stages of it that I just got used to when it was up in the 2 liter bottle up so high, then it was this much to dump in out of the bottle. It's not a critical thing where you have to have to the exact milliliter for a given volume. There is some leeway there.
But your point is that after you have enriched for a full day, 12 hours, 12 hours,
Yeah,
then you use peroxide to get any bacteria off the feed.
right.
Okay, I'm going to copy and paste this. And this is from your site, Ray?
Oh, that
Oh,
piece
it's
of
from
hand. Well, it's
seahorse.org.
actually from seahorse.org, but it's on my site.
Okay.
But I'm going to have to get a new host because I'm having a lot of troubles with this one. So, but I can't even get on to my control panel to be able to migrate right now. So I'm told that a new host has ways of migrating it without me being able to get on the thing. So I'm just waiting for them to get back to me on it.
Yeah,
But
and this is
anyway, it's originally from when Dan posted on seahorse.org, and I put
mhm.
the information on my website because it was easier for people to access my website than sometimes get the information off the org.
Yep.
Um, anyway, so basically, I peroxide them, and then I take them out, and I actually rinse them in new salt water again. Just whether I had to do it or not, I don't know. It was just something I did. So I just give them a quick rinse. They're in the mesh, and I just pour some fresh salt water down over it. Then throw them in the fry tank.
All right. So I'm going to try to do this and read this, even though my light is acting up and I can't see anything.
Different people do it in
Awesome.
different ways. It's just I can't tell you what other
Well,
people
but
do. I
no,
just could tell you
yes,
what I did.
we often talk about using peroxide, but people ask when, at what step, when, what, where. And really it's just cleaning the live feed
Mhm.
before you put it into the tank. That's the trick.
Peroxide
And it's
doesn't just clean
because
it; it sterilizes it somewhat. Like the peroxide will kill a lot of pathogens.
yes, so that's my point. But what I'm saying is you're talking about hatched Artemia that's been in this hatchery that, gets dirty and people don't usually clean them enough and etc. And there's bacteria. And then you put them into another container in Ray's circumstance and you're feeding him spirulina because he makes so much for each batch. Then you're taking out what you want and enriching, and there's just all these areas where bacteria could occur and where problems could occur. And what you want is pure, clean food for the seahorses that are enriched. So the trick is to use peroxide after they're enriched. And I think you said in your comments, I was trying to read it, but total of 5 minutes, 1.5 minutes aeration, 3.5 minutes no aeration. Correct, Ray?
That's
Well,
how
I
I
don't
did it.
remember this stuff anymore. You got to
Yeah,
remember,
that's
Well,
I've
how
you
not
I
done
did it.
that.
wrote it
I
down.
did it. Yeah.
So you put him in this thing and he has 60 milliliters of 40 volume clear peroxide. There's different conversions depending on what peroxide you're using.
Yeah.
But basically, you're putting them in peroxide water where, it kills off any of the bacteria and the bad stuff. And then Ray would do another rinse in just salt water to get the peroxide off of them. I never
Well, the
did that. I put them
peroxide
in
is
with the
pretty
I
well
peroxide.
used
rinsed
up in
mine
that
under the
time
sink.
anyway. But,
Yeah, so there's give or take there, but then you've killed off anything that could have happened during that process that's bad, and you've got these really good, really enriched, brine shrimp for the tank that the seahorses eat them, and they're getting a blast of vitamins, like us taking a vitamin. And it's really good for them, gives them the huffas and the whatever DHA that they need. And all of a sudden you've got sparky, perky seahorses that are, flirting and frying and, frying wasn't a good word, having fry and, healthy, and all of a sudden building up and looking healthier. So you can do it with adults. With adults, I absolutely recommend the hydrogen peroxide step, because a lot of times I would get adults from like the fish store. You don't know what's going on in the fish store. If you haven't hatched the Artemia yourself and grown them up yourself, you don't know what's on them. You don't know what they've been through. So I would do exactly what Ray was talking about. Enrichment, spirulina, if I needed to. I usually bought just what I needed to feed. So I would buy what I needed to feed. If we're talking about adults, right? Just a snack for adults. Buy what I need to feed, enrich again, peroxide, and then feed. And then you've got this wholesome treat that doesn't have anything bad on them. Now, I do want to, are you raising your hand, Ray? I can't
No.
see the light. Okay, go.
There's a couple things. What you posted there, it's only partially there, and it won't take the full amount because of the size of it.
I'll make sure it's in the comments.
What I'm wondering is, there's a reefer that has a website that's got some of your information posted on. He's got a big site, I'm understanding. I can't remember his name. I can't remember what it's called. What's this cognition problem? I can't get that.
Okay.
But first of all, I need to know his website anyway, because Noel wants to access it. And what I'm thinking now is, until I can get my site migrated and have this information easier accessible on a new site, then maybe this fellow could put this up on a page, and then we could post that link to it on his website.
And this guy is who?
I don't remember his name. Like, he's always posting and thumbs up. And
so get with me after the stream. We'll try to figure out who we're talking about. But what I'm hearing, Ray, is that you want to help me finish the site that we could do together. That's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm hearing.
No,
I know, I'm kidding.
No, what the transitioning that I'm doing onto something else is to transition everything I have in my site right now to another one that works faster.
Right.
And that allows me to get in to make changes. Right now, I can't get in and make changes.
But I have a site that works really fast, and you can make changes.
Until then, if this other fellow could put it on his site.
Yeah, I get you.
Zen
Get with
talks with him, so
right. Yeah.
Zen could tell us what this is. Anyway.
Yeah. So let's see what she
said.
said.
The other thing is,
because I'm not sure what you're talking about, but
I started missing when you started talking just before I got into this. You were talking about adults. Were you talking about adult Artemia or adult seahorses?
Yeah. Adult Artemia.
Okay, the adult Artemia only going to be fed to adult seahorses. They're no good for fry.
Right.
But you don't need to go 24 hours for the adults. Two sessions, 4 hours each is plenty to have it.
I think they're 4 hours to enrich adult Artemia.
No, right.
Yeah, 2 4-hour.
Like I said, it's been since I did any of this, you guys. I just remember doing it. I don't remember.
Now, the way I did it to make it easy, I used a fish bowl. I used 1 liter of water with 60 milliliters of 40 volume developer, clear developer that I got at the beauty store, because what I figured out was I could get it. You can see what I do to my hair. I could get a better deal buying it that way at the beauty store than to buy like the hydrogen peroxide, the lower volume. So I used less of it. So what I would do is put them in with the 60 milliliters of that, 1 liter of salt water, and then I'd run an air stone in there for 3.5 minutes. Or was it 1.5? I think I have it.
It's 1.5 minutes on, 3.5
Yeah,
minutes
so
off.
1.5 minutes on air. Then I'd pull the air stone out and let it sit for 3.5 minutes. And then I'd pour them all into a sieve and I'd run them under the sink with low pressure water. And then I'd take another cup of salt water and run it through the mesh into a container so that they were in a container now that I could dump into the tank for the baby seahorses. So that's exactly how I did it. I went to Sally's Beauty Supply and I got 40 volume clear developer.
Well, and the reason that I'm trying to bring this up, I'm sorry, guys, that I don't remember the exact hours and stuff. We need to get it on the website.
And I had Dan do the math for me because there's percentages and different volumes of peroxide you use. And I didn't want to do the math. I'm not really a math person. So I just asked Dan on our show one night, and that's what he told me. And if you can only get 30 volume peroxide, he says use 80 milliliters because it's not as strong.
Yeah, use more if you have the lower percentage peroxide. But the thing is, on all the articles you find about enrichment, they talk about how important enrichment is. They talk about how to enrich, but none of them talk about this peroxide stuff. And it's a game changer. Like, I think, Holly, didn't you start to have better success once you
they started living. I was losing a lot of the babies in my first couple batches, and I figured out it cleaning up their food made a huge difference.
Okay, sorry. Using the posted Dan's measures for 1 liter water, you would need
83 milliliters would be the correct amount.
I really feel like I'm at the point where I really want to make my site like cute and pretty and easy to navigate, but I think the articles need to be out there. So I'll get with Ray on the back end and see if we can't just put it on this other gentleman's site. But if not, I'm going to start just putting up articles so that we can share the links. And even if the website isn't complete and doesn't look good, at least the articles are out there, you know, because they do need to be out there. I can't even remember. You know, I have to look it up or ask someone.
I took notes. This is my notebook from, geez, I started it, 6 years ago?
Well, I would say, Holly, I need an author. So if you want to write some articles, I'll put them up for sure. Anybody interested in helping out. I want to get it done. I've got stuff in my life, right? Yeah. Where I can't like sit and concentrate on it. And it sucks because it matters to me and I care and I want it to be good, but it's just been kind of, you know, hectic. Anyways, so I just wanted to make sure that we did do a stream where we talked about how important the peroxide part of enrichment was, because you don't hear about that a lot. You don't see it a lot. You just hear about the enrichment, but not the cleaning them up afterwards. And I do think it's a game changer. Like, I can't tell you how many times I did have problems. And then once I added that peroxide step, no more. All of a sudden, everything was great. Not great, not perfect, but you know what I'm saying. Like, big difference. Yeah. Anything else to say about any of that, guys?
Can't think of anything more, but my mind doesn't work right anyway, so you got to accept that.
Well, the only other thing I would ask about enrichment, because I know I would love for this to be a shorter stream tonight because I have to work in the morning, but I want to make sure every question gets answered. We're going to talk about Sophie and Sophie's Dot, I think the name was. I can't see with this damn light. I'm sorry. But before we leave enrichment, I would say when I was raising fry, and I've never done dwarves, but when I was raising fry and or enriching adults just because I wanted them to make me fry, I I was using Dan's feed. Okay, that was my go-to. That was it. There's all these products on the market. I can't pronounce most of them. Venison, which supposedly makes them redder, and then you got spirulina, that's just the base feed, and you've got what are the other ones?
I was using Alyssa Gabriel's enrichment. She made her own and sold it in
Does she still have
packets.
it on the?
Well, I haven't been on her website in a long time because I don't need anything now, but it might be worth checking her website and see if she still sells the enrichment. Or you could probably message her and she'd probably have,
Absolutely,
if you
yes.
don't see it on
And
her
I
website.
think Dan's about to make a comeback, guys. He actually reached out to me and said, "I'll talk to you soon." So hopefully he'll make a comeback. But in the meantime, Ray, what do you look for in an enrichment? Meaning,
Well, the main thing
DHA.
is
How do you?
the Schizochitrium algae. That's the DHA.
Okay,
And Dan's feed he used the Algamac and and then put some other things with it. But primarily, the majority of what he had was Algamac. Now, for me, it's too expensive for the amount that I used to be buying Dan's feed, buying his enrichments and so on. I bought the Algamac. Um, the last one is Algamac 3050, but I think it was Algamac 3000 before that. But anyway, it was Schizochitrium, and I bought it direct from California to use because of the amount I was using, and because a bag of it, I think it was 800 grams, was still more than what I needed in a reasonable period of time. I also sold it to clownfish breeders to use because I
sure.
was selling green water and a few things to for the clownfish breeders, and they were buying shrimp from me and a lot of other things. So when I'd get somebody on doing their own thing and needing to enrich on themselves, then I sold them the Algamac for that too. It worked fine for the clownfish.
So it's Schizochitrium. Is that how you
Schizochitrium.
say it? It's Schizochitrium. Okay.
Schizochitrium. Uh, and don't ask me how to spell it here just now. I could
Right, right,
probably.
right. Well, when I do get with Dan, my thing is, I mean, even if he's not into breeding and raising and selling seahorses, he could still sell his blend of Dan's feed because that shit was
Okay, one
amazing.
other thing here,
I mean,
as to sources, a long, long time ago when I was doing this, I was talking with one of the guys at Brine Shrimp Direct, and he told me that they use the Schizochitrium in a lot of the foods that they make out, the flake foods and so on. And
mhm.
he offered then, if I couldn't get it from California, then to give him a call, and he would sell me Schizochitrium direct. So um,
Yeah, to Brian
maybe
Shrimp
you could
Direct.
contact them at Brine Shrimp Direct and see if you could get some from him. It's not in their, they don't list it in the
Right.
on their pages and that, but it's something that they use because they make up their own foods. They don't buy it from some other company and then sell it off to you.
I love the I can't say the word.
Ingenuity.
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 Yeah. Of people that can like make up their own
Mhm.
Yep.
feeds and figure out, okay, this has the DHA, this has the protein, this has the whatever. Man, that's amazing. And I would definitely trust Alyssa with that. I would trust Dan with that. I would trust Ray with that. And Brine Shrimp Direct, you might have to do a little math for yourself and figure it out. But even if you didn't have it perfect, it's better than what's on the market
Well, for
now.
me, the
Is
other
my
things that Dan was putting into it, it wasn't worth it to me to buy that stuff and mix it all up because you have to buy in quantities that were, because those were just minute parts of the enrichment, and the Schizochitrium was the major part of it. But because you got these other things here. It wouldn't be worth it for me to get it, even for the amount that I was using. If I mix it up, and even for the amount, like what I sell to the clownfish and that, overall, it still wasn't enough volume to justify the cost of it all. So I just used the Algamac, which is pretty well all schizochytrium and nothing else, and it worked fine for me.
Right, and I get that, and I'm not saying that's not the way to go. I'm just saying I know that Dan spent a lot of time putting certain things in it to enhance certain things, and you know, it was just a really good feed enrichment. That's all I'm saying. I understand that it might not be worth it for certain people, but for me, when I used Dan's feed, man, I had fry out the butt. They were healthier. They lived longer, especially after I added the peroxide step. And I'm sure the same is with Alyssa's, right? But if you can do it on your own and mix it yourself, like you are, Ray, more power to you.
One other
that's
thing
smart,
to worry about with enrichments, back on the old Reef Central forum, when Randy Holmes Farley was still on it, they got into a discussion of enrichments, and I can't remember the name. There was a few other guys on there that were into the chemistry knowledge and so on, but someone at that point took it on themselves to send samples away of the various enrichments that were being sold, and most of them come back 99% water.
What? Do you mean like Galgamac
No,
and
no.
stuff?
This is, I'm trying to think of the names of some of the products now.
Well, for sure you have to be aware that there's going to be snakes out there and they're going to sell you crap.
There's a big reefer, an old time reefer, and he's the one that got me on to the Berlin system, actually. And I can't think of his name here now, but he started up a company, and his enrichment was one of the ones at 1%.
And that's crazy. That's really sad. I mean, you need to be careful. You need to look at the ingredients. And was he claiming that it was
It was
full of the
something
good stuff?
snow.
Reef snow?
No, that doesn't sound
I've
familiar.
heard of that.
That may
Well,
be it.
let's
You
not-
know, with my memory, I just can't pull it out right now.
I don't think we should be dogging anybody live anyways, right? So,
Yeah.
it is
But
what
there
it
are
is. But I
products out there that are inferior. They're not doing anything but take your money.
right. So make sure that you're buying a product that has
Good
what is it, Ray?
reputation
What
Well,
too. Like,
you want,
you
you
know,
want
if
high
people have
DHA.
been using it, like the Agamac or Algamac,
Algamac,
Algamac. I mean, I've been hearing of that for a long time. I think people have been using that for a while, and it's
I would
good.
trust
I
Dan's
heard
feed.
it's
I would
good.
trust.
Well, a lot of people use
Yeah.
the Celcons. There's Celcon and Celcon, and they're different product, but very similar, but different companies. And the problem with emulsions, it doesn't store well, doesn't last. And you buy a bottle of it, and I'll guarantee you don't have enough use of it to use it up before it goes bad. And the biggest problem, it's often sold on the store shelves when it needs to be kept refrigerated. So that's even worse. So when you buy it, you don't know how long it's been sitting on that shelf.
Yeah, true.
And I'm all about supporting local fish stores, because we want them to thrive. But sometimes it is better to buy online direct.
I believe there is a Celcon or Celco powder of some of their versions, but
I think so.
I don't know where you can find it, because around here the stores don't carry it. They only carry the emulsions. And the other thing is the Celcons and Celcos. There's one of them has a lot of different versions. Like you can get a high DHA component Celcon or Celcon, and I don't remember which is the good one now. One just has just the one version, and that's it. The other one you can get different emulsions for different applications. But if you can get the high DHA one, that's better. Just remember, as soon as it starts smelling off, then don't use it anymore.
Don't. Right. Well, and I would say, like, we are going to talk after the stream, and we're going to try to get this information, posted on a website somewhere so that it's easily accessible so that you guys can reference it and remember. Because we've talked about a lot of stuff, I know, and kind of jump back and forth, but we're going to get something online to where you can access it. With that being said, let's talk about Sophie's seahorses.
Okay, with the itching problem.
Yes.
I'm assuming this is probably the same one that had it before, in which case I'm not seeing the seahorse to see just how bad it is. If it's really bad, then I'd be wanting to do a freshwater dip, just to at least alleviate the problem and also to be sure that it is a parasitic problem. Now, the thing that concerns me is that it's one of the two seahorses that have it and not the other one. Now, that's entirely possible too, because this one may not have the same kind of immune capabilities that the other one has. And the other one's so far been able to resist it. And this one, with a lower capability, has probably had a stress of some kind that has allowed the parasites to expand and become problematic to the seahorse. Now, probably the first thing I'd still want to do a freshwater dip. I think if the itching is really bad and having to do a lot of scratching, I'd do the freshwater dip because I'm pretty sure it's going to show the parasites. But the other thing is it's going to get the level down a lot more. And then the next thing is to try and build up the immune system that particular seahorse has, which means going into a high intensity feeding program.
Maybe enriched foods.
No, that's not as critical, and especially not everybody's going to be able to get into that live food situation. And because they're adults, you have to grow them out, the Artemia out to adults.
You can buy Artemia live adults. Yes, you can.
I couldn't buy them here. I always had to raise my own brine shrimp, but they're easy to raise.
But the thing is, most people aren't going to get into that.
Brine shrimp, adult brine shrimp.
And you can boost the capability of the seahorses that have lesser capabilities by doing multiple feedings, small feedings. So it's a pain in the butt, but after a couple months, you can turn that seahorse from a flat sided situation to a convex side. And it's worth it. You might 5 or 6 small feedings a day. And the main thing is you might have periods of time for 8 or 10 hours where you can't do anything. But if you can get 20 minutes to half an hour between these small feedings, that's better than nothing.
Yeah. Where is Sophie?
She's down the street from me.
So Canada.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
We don't have access to adult brine shrimp here. We just have the cysts and we can grow them ourselves.
And you can't buy live mice.
Well, you gotta remember too, where I live, most of the pet stores don't even have saltwater fish. I only have one store that has saltwater fish.
Yeah, well, that's true so here too. We've only got
not big city here. Really.
We have 2 of them that have
saltwater fish. We're gonna need more people. We're gonna need more people like Sophie to be successful, so that there are saltwater alternatives in Canada. And Holly, you're going to have to step up.
Well, yeah, you know, I live in the woods in a town that burned down, so good luck. We're lucky we have grocery stores at this point.
It's a shame that for someone like me, I'm sitting here like, well, why don't you just go to the pet store and get adult Artemia? Or why don't you just buy live mysids? Because I
My
can do
local
that.
pet
It's a
store is
real
like an
thing.
hour away.
Yeah, I know. I get it. In certain circumstances, it's harder. But as Ray was saying, you can almost do it just with frozen mysis by doing a different regimen and then doing a freshwater dip for the itching. So if Dot, like we talked last week and I think the week before, Sophie, and I'm going to try to see your comments. I can't through the light, but let's see what she said. So you have not done a freshwater dip yet. Okay, that's good to know. Shit, I can't make
Well,
this
see, it
mine.
also
Okay,
be you
so if I do
used to be able to
freshwater
order
dip,
them
what should
from
I do to prevent them in the
livebrindshrimp.com and have them shipped to you.
Wait, time out. Let's answer her question first. So if I do a freshwater dip, what should I do to prevent them in the future? What do you mean by them?
The ciliates,
The problems?
I
The
think.
ciliates?
Yeah, it's probably ciliates, but it could be something else too.
Okay.
But you can't get rid of them. They're always going to be. Every
No.
fish has them. Every plant you put in, a coral, they're going to have these things on them. It's a case of
Yes.
keeping conditions right so that they don't expand. One thing that helps them to expand is what we talked
yeah,
about, the
let's
dissolved
back up.
organics. The other thing is getting the
Temperature.
seahorse, but she knows about the temperature. Temperature also helps, but
But I know, but Ray, time out. For everybody else that watches, I know we're dealing with Sophie, but for anybody who watches later, the ways to avoid the problem in the future, if you have to freshwater dip a seahorse, then number one, make sure your temperature is low so things aren't expanding. Number two, what,
well,
Ray?
first
Go
of
ahead.
all, that temperature is mainly for a bacteria situation. It's not
It is.
applicable to parasites.
It's still, for me, part of the big equation.
Okay.
Go on.
But the only other thing is if you're controlling your dissolved organics and hoping you are, you don't always know because you can't measure it. But the other thing is improving the immune capability of the seahorse, and that's what I just discussed. And I can't think of anything you can do more than that other than periodic freshwater dips, which I don't like to do them too often because it's a stress in itself. And so
Yes.
while the freshwater dip will get rid of a lot of the parasites that are already present on that seahorse, the stress that the seahorse goes through means that if she stays stressed for any length of time, it's going to bring the parasites back faster again. And
Now,
Right.
would bigger water changes help at all with ciliates?
only in the fact that the bigger water changes are going to lower the dissolved organic levels, which are synonymous with the increase in pathogens and bacteria.
So it could help theoretically then.
Yeah.
Help, but you need to figure out the root of the
Mhm.
problem. Are you feeding too much? Are you not removing the excess food? Are your water changes not big enough so that the waste is building up? Do you have a big skimmer on the tank? Sophie, I know I'm at fault for this one because I never sent you the skimmer. I still want to, so get with me on the side again. I'll send you the skimmer. It's just sitting here. I don't think you have a skimmer on the tank, and that's like one of the A1 things we say to have on a seahorse tank. So let me send this to you. Let's see what that does to help. Because yeah, I mean, I don't think she even has a sump on this tank, right?
Before you send, make sure that her sump can be accessed with a skimmer the size that you have.
Right. Because I don't even think she has a skim or a sump on this
I
tank.
don't
Does
remember now. She has one on the one she got from me that she'll use for the fry, but I don't know.
She? Right. So I would say this. When I set up my seahorses, I've told you guys this a million times, but I'll say it again. basically I set them up too many seahorses in a 29-gallon tank, right? 4 seahorses in a 29. We say 2 seahorses to a 30. I lost a male to a pouch injury that turned into GBD, that turned into a mess. I ended up adding a hang on back skimmer, or I'm sorry, sump that had skimmer, algae, scrubber, and pump back to the tank because I was trying to figure out how to do this. Eventually, I upgraded and gave them a bigger tank, but I was able to resolve the dying problem by adding the sump and the
Yeah.
skimmer. So,
Yeah.
like, if you're willing to do that, I really will send it to you. I think that right before I said I'd send it, I had to go on a trip. I'm pretty sure. So right now, I'm not going on any trips. Get with me on the side. I'll send it. It is big, but you could literally do just a glass tank with pump and return and big old skimmer, and that would probably help tremendously. I would say in the meantime, your only other alternative is massive water changes or figuring out where your feeding is going awry, if that makes sense. Like Ray always talks about, you need to feed them multiple small meals, right? So we're not talking about broadcast feeding 4 times a day where crap's getting stuck up under rocks, right? We're talking about being very focused on how much you're feeding, where the food's going, and making sure if they don't eat it, that you get it
No
out.
more than they can eat in
Because
10 to 12 minutes.
right. And just remembering that even after they eat it, they're pooping it, and that's adding to organics, right? So the more you feed, the more water changes you do need to do, or the more adequate filtration you need to have. If he's scratching, I would absolutely do a freshwater dip on Dot, because obviously the other one is not having the problem. Do a freshwater dip, and then see where we go from there. That's what I would do.
Sophie, if you really need to, give me a call, and I can
Yeah.
go down and see just how bad the scratching is, and we can decide then whether you should do the dip or not.
That's
And
true,
then Ray
because
can
I've
help
seen
you
this
through
before.
it because it can be kind of hard to
Yeah.
watch the first time you do
Yes.
it.
Right. And I would say too, though, that seahorses sometimes just
Mm.
scratch, not repeatedly over and over, as you're saying you're seeing. But every time I see a seahorse flick his, gill with his tail, I'm like, oh my God, and then it's nothing.
Sadie likes
Nothing.
to
I do a water
scratch
change
on
and they're fine.
stuff and sit in bubbles. She likes to
Yeah.
massage. She likes to get
Yeah.
massages.
Yeah, there's a degree that they can handle with no problem, but then there's a point where it gets overdone. You have to do something about it.
Yeah.
And I want to talk to you guys, not tonight, next week, but remind me to talk to you. Holly, write it down. Remind me to talk about seahorse eyesight. I'll know exactly what I want to talk about, and we'll have that discussion. You guys know I just went through something, and now I'm seeing some other odd
Oh.
things. So want to have that discussion, but not tonight because I got to go to bed.
Maybe
But
Zen could message me the website that she's always talking about and always referring.
wait a minute. What do you
Yeah,
mean?
the one that he was talking about. Yeah, because he's on here a lot, usually in the stream. It's
He's not on tonight, but Zen's always referring to that site that's got this and that on
Okay.
it, so on, and it's also got information for your Wine Wednesday on it as well.
Is it Reefa
Do you mean
Palooza or
family?
something like that?
Do you mean Fish
That's
Family?
probably it.
Yes. Yeah, I
Okay.
think that's it.
If I do Google for Fish Fam Links, it should come up.
Miss Zen, can you post us a link? I think that's right. I can't see with this light in my face. I can't see. But yeah, Zen will post the link to Fish Fam Links here in just a second. And then, yeah, reach out to him because he could at least put an article up, I'm sure. And, until we can get it on the website, for sure.
Okay.
Zen, I hope you're listening.
I've got it here now,
But-
so I'll pass that on to Noel.
Okay. All right. Well, anyways, we've talked about a lot. We've talked about enriching foods. We've talked about how some people can't get the foods to enrich, and that sucks. We've talked about dealing with problematic scratching seahorses. What else do we need to talk about, guys?
Nothing here.
Zen Ginger put up the link for Fish Fam Link. And and they are definite supporters of the channel. Recommend them to find all sorts of resources. So hopefully they will put up a link for us or a post for us. But in the meantime, can't believe it because we usually go another 45 minutes, but I think I'm going to call it for tonight. Unless you guys think we have anything else that I have missed.
Not that I'm
I'm
aware
aware.
of.
I love you guys. I want to see you every week and I want to grow this channel, but I'm freaking tired. I'm so tired. I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, let's do some research on the back end, see if we can talk to Fish Fam Links to get up an article. If not, work on how to get somebody's website going well. And in the meantime, Sophie, do a freshwater dip on Dot. Do a water change on the tank. Let us know how it goes. Message me if you're able to put this huge ass skimmer in your tank or in a sump. I'm sorry. I'll send it to you. I never meant to not, just life, but I will send it to you and let's see if that fixes the problem. So that's where we're at on that. If anybody has any questions about enrichment, freshwater dips, or anything we discussed tonight, I do read the comments later. So make a comment. I will respond to it. We also have a Facebook group, Seahorse Whisperer group on Facebook. Join that, and we're all there, and we can all answer your questions. And Bonnie, I'm sorry I didn't get to talk to you much. I did see you're here. Thank you for being here. And yeah, for tonight, guys, cheers. We'll be back next week with more fun and important information.
Cheers.
Everybody say cheers.
Cheers.
Good night, everyone. Happy Wine Wednesday. Look, my glasses.